I heard your brother's testimony, and I'm seriously considering changing your sentence. What do you have to say?
That little bastard is lying. I would never do that. Please, you have to believe me.
Not the kind of silence that comes from respect. This was different. Heavier. The kind that presses against your chest and makes you hold your breath without realizing it. Nathan Hale sat at the defense table, hands folded in his lap, staring at nothing. He was 17, thin, pale, the kind of kid who looked like he spent more time reading than talking. His mother Ruth sat 3 rows behind him, gripping a tissue she'd already shredded into pieces. Across the aisle, Derek Walsh kept his eyes down. 16 years old, quiet, hunched over like he was trying to disappear into his chair. His parents flanked him on either side, stone-faced. The case had been straightforward. At least that's what everyone thought. On the night of October 12th, Derek Walsh was found injured in Riverside Park. Bruised ribs, split lip, a gash above his left eye that required stitches. He told police Nathan Hale had attacked him without warning. No provocation, no reason. Nathan denied it. Said he wasn't even there. But Derek's injuries were real. Witnesses placed Nathan near the park that night. His fingerprints were on Derek's jacket. The evidence lined up. The prosecution had built a solid case. The defense had nothing but Nathan's word, and the word of a scared teenager doesn't hold much weight in a courtroom. Judge Linda Moreau looked tired. She'd been presiding over this trial for 3 days, and it was clear where it was headed. The jury had already started exchanging glances, the kind that says, "Let's get this over with." "Does the defense have any further witnesses?" Judge Moreau asked, her voice flat. Marcus Field, Nathan's public defender, stood. He was young, maybe 28, idealistic, overworked, and visibly exhausted. He hesitated for just a second too long. "Yes, Your Honor." "We call Elliot Crane to the stand." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "Who?" A bailiff opened the side door and a small figure stepped inside. Elliot Crane was 11 years old, short for his age, dark hair that stuck up in the back. He wore a button-up shirt that was slightly too big, sleeves rolled unevenly at the wrists. His sneakers squeaked on the polished floor as he walked to the witness stand. He didn't look at Nathan, didn't look at Derek, just stared straight ahead as the bailiff swore him in. "Do you swear to tell the truth? The whole truth and nothing but the truth?" Elliot's voice was quiet but clear. "I do." Marcus approached slowly, gently. "Elliot, can you tell the court where you were on the night of October 12th? Elliot swallowed. His hands gripped the edge of the wooden railing in front of him. "I was walking home from my friend's house." "And did you pass through Riverside Park?" "Yes." "What did you see?" Elliot took a breath. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. "I saw Nathan," Elliot said, "and Derek." The prosecutor, Claire Davison, sat up straighter. "What were they doing?" Marcus asked. Elliot's voice wavered, but he didn't stop. "They were arguing, and then someone else showed up." Silence. "Someone else?" Marcus pressed. "Yeah, another guy, older, I think. He pushed Nathan, hard. Nathan fell, and then he went after Derek." Claire Davison shot to her feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This is the first time any mention of a third party has been made. There's no corroboration." "Your Honor," Marcus interrupted. "This is a sworn testimony from an eyewitness who was present at the scene. The court has an obligation to hear it." Judge Moreau stared at Elliot for a long moment. The boy didn't flinch. "Overruled," she said finally. "Continue." Marcus turned back to Elliot. "Did you see this other person's face?" Elliot shook his head. "It was dark, but I saw what happened. Nathan didn't hit Derek. The other guy did." The courtroom erupted. Whispers, gasps. Derek's mother grabbed her husband's arm. Ruth Hale covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. Judge Moreau slammed her gavel. "Order!" Claire Davison was already on her feet again, but Judge Moreau raised a hand. "I'm calling a recess." she said sharply. This court is adjourned until further notice. The case will be reopened for additional investigation. The gavel came down again. Final. Nathan turned to look at Elliot for the first time. His expression was unreadable. Shock, maybe. Or disbelief. Elliot didn't meet his eyes. He stepped down from the stand, his sneakers squeaking. Again, and walked toward his parents waiting near the back. His father, Greg, put a hand on his shoulder. His mother, Linda, pulled him close. Outside, Claire Davison stood on the courthouse steps, arms crossed, watching the Crane family get into their car. She didn't like this. Not one bit. Something about that boy's testimony felt off. And Claire Davison trusted her instincts. Detective Ann Morrison didn't like being pulled into cases that had already gone to trial. It meant someone had screwed up, or someone was lying. Sometimes both. She sat across from Claire Davison in a cramped office at the district attorney's building, a lukewarm coffee going cold between them. Claire looked like she hadn't slept. You really think the kid's lying? Anne asked. Claire didn't hesitate. I think something's wrong. His testimony came out of nowhere. No one knew he existed until 3 days into the trial, and his story conveniently gives Nathan Hale an out. Anne leaned back in her chair. Conveniently doesn't mean false. Maybe not, but it needs to be checked. That's why I called you. Ann Morrison had been a detective for 16 years. She'd worked everything from domestic disputes to homicides. She knew how to read people, how to find the cracks in their stories, and right now she needed to find the cracks in Elliot Crane's. 2 hours later, Anne sat in a small interview room at the police station. Neutral walls, a table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner, red light blinking. Elliot Crane sat across from her, hands folded in his lap. His parents were just outside, visible through the glass window. Linda Crane kept glancing in every few seconds, like she was afraid Anne might disappear with her son. Anne kept her tone soft, friendly. Hey, Elliot, I'm Detective Morrison. You can call me Anne if you want. Elliot nodded but didn't speak. I just want to go over what you told the court, okay? Make sure we have everything straight. No pressure, just talking. Another nod. Anne pulled out a notepad. You said you were walking home from a friend's house the night of October 12th. What's your friend's name? Caleb, Elliot said quietly. Caleb Jensen. And you left Caleb's house around what time? Maybe 8:30? Anne jotted it down. And you walked through Riverside Park? Yeah. Why that way? Is it your usual route? Elliot hesitated. Just a second. Sometimes. Anne noticed. She didn't push. Not yet. Okay. So you're walking through the park, and you see Nathan Hale and Derek Walsh. What were they doing when you first saw them? They were talking, I think, or maybe arguing. I couldn't really hear. Where were you? On the path near the basketball courts. And where were they? By the benches near the trees. Anne nodded slowly. And then you said someone else showed up, another guy. Yeah. What did he look like? Elliot's eyes dropped. I don't know. It was dark. He was wearing a hoodie, I think. Tall, short. Taller than Nathan, I think. Did you hear him say anything? No. He just pushed Nathan and then went after Derek. Anne watched him carefully. And what did you do? Elliot blinked. What? When you saw this happening, what did you do? He shifted in his seat. I ran. I got scared and I ran. Where'd you run to? Home. Did you tell your parents what you saw? Elliot looked down again. No. Why not? I don't know. I just didn't. Anne let the silence sit for a moment. Then she leaned forward just slightly. Elliot, I'm going to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Did anyone tell you to say what you said in court? His head snapped up. No. Your parents didn't know, he said again, louder this time. Nobody told me anything. I saw what I saw. Anne studied his face. He looked scared, but scared of what? She closed notepad. Okay, thank you, Elliot. You did good. He didn't look reassured. After Elliot left with his parents, Anne made 2 phone calls. The first was to Caleb Jensen's mother. She confirmed Elliot had been at their house that afternoon, but he left around 6, not 8:30. The second call was to pull the security footage from the convenience store on the corner near Riverside Park. There was a camera aimed at the street. If Elliot walked through at 8:30 like he said, it would show. It didn't. Anne sat back in her chair and stared at the frozen image on her computer screen. Elliot. Crane was lying. The question was, about what and why? The next morning, Anne drove to Derek Walsh's house. It was a small ranch-style home on the east side of town. Neat lawn, American flag hanging by the door. Derek's father answered. He was a big man, arms crossed, expression hard. "We already gave our statement," he said. "I know, Mr. Walsh. I just have a few follow-up questions for Derek. Won't take long." He didn't look happy, but he stepped aside. Derek sat on the couch in the living room, staring at his hands. He looked smaller than he had in court, quieter. Anne sat across from him. "Hey, Derek, I'm Detective Morrison." He nodded but didn't look up. "I wanted to ask you about the night at the park. You told police Nathan Hale attacked you. Is that still what you remember?" "Yeah." "No one else was there?" "No." Anne leaned forward slightly. "Derek, a witness says they saw someone else, someone in a hoodie. Does that ring a bell?" Derek's jaw tightened. "I don't know what they're talking about." "You sure?" "Yeah." Anne watched him. His hands were trembling. Just a little. "Derek," she said gently, "if someone's scaring you, you can tell me. It's my job to keep you safe." For a moment, she thought he might say something. His mouth opened, then closed. "I already told you what happened," he said flatly. "Nathan hit me. That's it." Anne left the Walsh house with more questions than answers. Derek wasn't angry. He wasn't defiant. He was terrified. And Anne. Morrison needed to find out why. Anne spent the next day digging into Elliot Crane's life. On paper, it looked ordinary. Divorced parents, decent grades, no disciplinary issues at school. A quiet kid who kept to himself. But Anne had learned a long time ago that ordinary was often where the secrets hid. She started with the father. Greg Crane taught history at Lincoln High, the same school Nathan Hale attended. Anne found him in his classroom after hours grading papers at his desk. He looked up when she knocked on the doorframe. "Mr. Crane? Detective Morrison. Do you have a few minutes?" Greg set down his pen and gestured to a chair. Of course. He was in his early 40s, graying at the temples, wearing a wrinkled button-down and khakis. He looked tired in the way teachers always do, like he carried the weight of other people's problems on his shoulders. Anne sat. "I wanted to ask you about Elliot's testimony." Greg nodded slowly. "He told the truth, that's all I know." "Did he tell you what he saw before he testified?" "Not in detail. He just said he saw something that night, something that proved Nathan didn't do it." "And you believed him?" Greg met her eyes. "My son doesn't lie, Detective." Anne didn't push back. "Not yet." "Mr. Crane, do you know Nathan Hale?" "I know of him. He's a student here, quiet kid, good student." "Ever have any issues with him?" "No." "What about his mother, Ruth Hale?" Greg's expression shifted, just slightly. "What about her?" "Do you know her?" He hesitated. "We've crossed paths, PTA meetings, school events, that sort of thing." "Any problems?" Greg looked away. "We had a disagreement a few years back. Nothing serious." "What kind of disagreement?" He sighed. "She wanted the school to adopt a new curriculum for history. Classes, I didn't agree with it. We butted heads at a couple meetings. It got heated, but that was years ago." Anne made a note. "Did Elliot know about that?" "I don't think so. Why would he?" Anne didn't answer. She just watched him. Greg shifted in his seat. "Look, Detective, my son saw something that night. He wanted to help. That's all this is. Why didn't he come forward sooner? I don't know. Maybe he was scared. Kids don't always know what to do in situations like that. Anne nodded. Does Elliot spend a lot of time alone? What do you mean? I mean, does he have friends? Does he go out much? Greg frowned. He has friends, he's just introverted. He likes books, puzzles, mystery shows. He paused. He's always wanted to help people, even when he was little. Anne filed that away. Thank you, Mr. Crane. I appreciate your time. She stood to leave, but Greg called. After her. Detective? She turned. Elliot's a good kid, Greg said quietly. Whatever you're looking for, you won't find it in him. Anne didn't respond. She just walked out. Linda Crane was harder to pin down. Anne finally caught her at the law office where she worked as a secretary. Linda agreed. To meet during her lunch break at a cafe down the street. She was polished, put together, the kind of woman who controlled every detail of her appearance, hair, nails, posture. But her eyes looked exhausted. I don't understand why you need to talk to me, Linda said, stirring her untouched coffee. Elliot already told you everything. I'm just trying to get the full picture, Anne said evenly. You and Greg are divorced, correct? Yes, 2 years now. How's Elliot handling it? Linda's jaw tightened. He's fine. Kids are resilient. Does he spend time with both of you? He lives with me. Greg has him on weekends. Was he with you the night of October 12th? Linda hesitated. He said he was at a friend's house. Did you check? No, why would I? Elliot doesn't lie. Anne heard the echo of Greg's words. My son doesn't lie. Mrs. Crane, do you know where Elliot was that night? Linda's hands tightened around her coffee cup. He told me he was at Caleb's. Caleb's mother says he left at 6, not 8:30. Linda went pale. I didn't know that. So you don't know where your son was for 2.5 hours? No, Linda whispered. Anne leaned forward. Mrs. Crane. Did Elliot seem different after that night? Anxious, upset? Linda looked away. He's been quiet, but Elliot's always quiet. Has he mentioned Nathan Hale before? No. What about Derek Walsh? No. Anne sat back. Mrs. Crane, I need you to be honest with me. Do you think Elliot is telling the truth? Linda's eyes filled with tears. I don't know, she said, voice breaking. I don't know anymore. Anne left the cafe and sat in her car for a long time, staring at her notes. Greg Crane had a grudge against Ruth Hale. Linda Crane didn't know where her son was the night of the incident. And Elliot Crane was lying about his timeline. Anne started the engine. This case was about to get a lot messier. Anne drove to the county detention center the next morning. Nathan Hale had been released on bail pending the reinvestigation, but his lawyer, Marcus Field, had agreed to bring him in for a follow-up interview. They met in the same sterile room where Anne had questioned Elliot. Nathan sat stiffly, hands on the table. Marcus sat beside him, legal pad open, pen ready. Nathan looked younger than 17. Fragile, almost. Dark circles under his eyes. His mother, Ruth, waited outside, visible through the glass. Anne sat down. Nathan, I know you've been through this already, but I need to ask you a few more questions. He nodded. You told police you weren't at Riverside Park the night Derek was attacked, but witnesses placed you there. Your fingerprints were on Derek's jacket. Why did you lie? Nathan swallowed hard. I didn't lie. I was there, I panicked when they asked. I didn't want them to think I did it. So you were there. Why? Nathan glanced at Marcus, who gave a small nod. I went to meet Derek, Nathan said quietly. Anne leaned forward. Why? We're supposed to talk. About what? Nathan's hands clenched. Something personal. Nathan, if you want me to help you, I need the whole story. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. Derek messaged me that afternoon, said he needed to tell me something important. He asked me to meet him at the park at 8. What did he want to tell you? I don't know, he never got the chance. Anne studied him. What happened when you got there? He was already there, by the benches. He looked scared. I asked him what was wrong, and he said, Nathan paused. He said someone was making him do something he didn't want to do. Who? He wouldn't say. Then someone else showed up. Anne's pulse quickened. Who? I don't know. I didn't see his face. He came out of nowhere, shoved me hard. I fell. And then he went after Derek. I tried to help, but I got scared. I ran. Why didn't I? You tell the police this? Nathan's voice cracked. Because I left him there. I ran and Derek got hurt and I thought they'd blame me anyway. Marcus put a hand on Nathan's shoulder. Anne sat back. Nathan, do you know why Derek would lie and say you attacked him? Nathan shook his head, tears streaming down his face. No, I thought we were friends. Anne closed her notebook. Nathan Hale wasn't lying, and that meant someone else was pulling the strings. Anne spent the next 2 days at Lincoln High School. She spoke to teachers, staff, students, anyone who knew Nathan Hale or Derek Walsh. Most of them said the same thing. Nathan was quiet, kept to himself. Derek was the same. Neither caused trouble. But Anne had learned to listen for what people didn't say. She found it in the hesitations, the pauses, the way eyes shifted when certain names came up. It was a guidance. Counselor Mr. Patel, who finally gave her something useful. Nathan and Derek, he said carefully, weren't friends exactly. But I saw Nathan step in once when some kids were giving Derek a hard time. When was this? Maybe 2 months ago. Derek was getting shoved around near the lockers. Nathan told them to stop. They did. Do you remember who was doing it? Mr. Patel nodded. Tyler Knox and his group. Anne wrote the name down. Who's Tyler Knox? Senior, popular, athlete. His father's got money. Tyler's, well, he's not someone you want to cross. Has he been in trouble before? Nothing official, but students know to stay out of his way. Anne found Tyler Knox in the school parking lot after last bell, leaning against a black BMW, surrounded by 3 other boys. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Anne approached. Tyler Knox? He looked her up and down. Who's asking? She showed her badge. Detective Morrison. I need to ask you a few questions about Derek Walsh. Tyler smirked. Don't know him. Really? Because I heard you had some run-ins with him. Run-ins? Tyler laughed. I don't even talk to kids. Like that. Kids like what? Nobodies. Anne felt her jaw tighten. Where were you the night of October 12th? At home, with my parents. You can ask them. I will. Tyler pushed off the car. We done here? For now. He walked away, his friends following. Anne watched him go. Tyler Knox was hiding something. She could feel it. Later that afternoon, Anne tracked down one of Derek's classmates, a quiet girl named Sophie Chen who sat near him in English class. They met in the library. Sophie looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder like someone might be listening. I don't want to get involved, Sophie said. I understand, but Derek's been hurt and I need to know what happened. Sophie bit her lip. Derek's always been quiet, but a few weeks before everything, he was different, like really scared. Scared of what? I don't know, but I saw him one day after school. He was sitting alone, and he looked like he'd been crying. I asked if he was okay, and he just said, someone knows and they're going to ruin me. Anne leaned forward. Did he say who? No, he wouldn't tell me, but I got the feeling it wasn't Nathan. Then who? Sophie hesitated. I think it was Tyler, or someone who works for Tyler. Why do you think that? Because Tyler does that. He finds out things about people, secrets, and then he uses them. Anne's mind raced. Did Derek ever mention what secret Tyler had on him? Sophie shook her head. No, but whatever it was bad enough. To make Derek terrified. Anne left the school and sat in her car, piecing it together. Derek was being blackmailed. By Tyler Knox, most likely. Nathan had tried to help Derek and ended up framed for assault. And Elliot Crane somehow knew all of this. But there was still one piece missing. Anne pulled out her phone and called the school's main office. "I need the contact information for a teacher," she said. "Angela Reed." Angela Reed met Anne at a coffee shop near the school. She was in her mid-30s, wore glasses, and looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Thank you for meeting me," Anne said. Angela nodded. "You said this was about Derek Walsh." "It is. I heard you tried to report something to the administration a few weeks ago, about Derek." Angela's face darkened. "I did. I saw him in the bathroom crying. When I asked what was wrong, he said someone knew something he didn't. Want anyone to know? I told the principal. I said Derek needed help." "What did they say?" Angela's voice was bitter. "They said it was adolescent drama, that kids exaggerate. They told me not to waste their time unless there was actual evidence of harm." Anne felt anger rising in her chest. "So, they ignored it." "They ignored it," Angela repeated. "And now Derek's been hurt and a boy's on trial and no one seems to care that we could have stopped this." Anne closed her notebook. "I care, Ms. Reed, and I'm going to find out what happened." Angela looked at her with tired, grateful eyes. "I hope you do." Anne sat in her car outside the coffee shop, staring at her notes. Derek was terrified of Tyler Knox. The school had ignored the warning signs, and Nathan Hale had walked into a trap he never saw coming. But the biggest question remained. Where did Elliot Crane fit into all of this? Anne went back to the basics. She pulled security footage from every camera within a 2-block radius of Riverside Park. Convenience stores, ATMs, traffic lights, anything with a timestamp from the night of October 12th. She sat in her office for hours, eyes burning from the screen, watching grainy footage frame by frame. At 7:47 p.m., Nathan Hale appeared on a camera outside a gas station 3 blocks from the park, walking alone, hands in his pockets, headed east. At 8:02 p.m., Derek Walsh appeared on the same camera, walking fast, head down, nervous. Anne kept watching. At 8:15 p.m., another figure appeared, hooded sweatshirt, face obscured, taller than Nathan, moving with purpose. Anne froze the frame, zoomed in. The image was too blurry to make out features, but the build was clear. Male, late teens or early 20s. She kept searching for Elliot Crane. He never appeared, not. At 8:30, not at 8, not anywhere near the park. Anne leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. Elliot had lied about his timeline. Again. The next morning, Anne brought Elliot and his parents back to the station. This time, the mood was different. Linda Crane looked pale. Greg looked defensive. Elliot sat between them, staring at the table. Anne laid out printed stills from the security footage. "Elliot," she said calmly, "you told me you were walking through the park at 8:30, but you're not on any of these cameras. Your friend Caleb says you left his house at 6, so where were you?" Elliot's lips trembled. "Elliot," Linda said softly, "just tell her the truth." Greg put a hand on his son's shoulder. "You're not in trouble. Just tell us what happened." Elliot's voice was barely a whisper. "I wasn't at Caleb's." Anne leaned forward. "Where were you?" "I was—" He swallowed hard. "I was already at the park." Silence. "What time?" Anne asked. "I got there around 7:30. "Why?" Elliot looked down. "I just wanted to walk. I needed to get out of the house." Linda's face crumpled. "Elliot." Anne kept her tone even. "Why did you need to get out?" Elliot didn't answer. Greg spoke instead, voice tight. "Things have been hard since the divorce. Sometimes Elliot just needs space." Anne nodded slowly. "Okay, so you were at the park early. Did you see Nathan arrive?" Elliot nodded. "What about Derek?" Another nod. "And the other person, the one in the hoodie?" Elliot hesitated, then nodded again. Anne studied him carefully. "Elliot, if you were there the whole time, why didn't you tell anyone right away? Why wait until the trial?" Elliot's eyes filled with tears. "Because I was scared." "Of what?" "I don't know. I just I didn't want to get involved. Anne sat back. She didn't believe him, not entirely. There were too many holes, too many inconsistencies. Elliot, she said quietly, I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you see who the person in the hoodie was? Elliot shook his head quickly. No, I already said it was too dark. But you were close enough to see Nathan get pushed, close enough to see Derek get hit. How could you not see the other person's face? Elliot's hands clenched into fists. I don't know. I just didn't. Linda reached for him. Anne, please. He's just a child. Anne softened her voice. No, and I'm not trying to scare him. I'm trying to understand. She leaned forward. Elliot, do you know Derek Walsh? He shook his head. Do you know Tyler Knox? His head snapped up, just for a second. Then he looked down again. No. Anne saw it. The flicker of recognition. The lie. Elliot, she said gently, if someone told you to say something, you can tell me. You won't get in trouble. Nobody told me anything, Elliot said, voice rising. I saw what I saw. Greg stood. I think we're done here. Anne didn't argue. She let them leave. But as she watched Elliot walk out between his parents, she knew one thing for certain. Elliot Crane wasn't just a witness, he was part of this. That night, Anne sat in her apartment, files spread across her kitchen table. She had security footage with no sign of Elliot. She had a boy who changed his story every time she pressed. She had a hooded figure no one could identify, and she had a victim too scared to tell the truth. Anne stared at the frozen image of the hooded figure on her laptop. Whoever this person was, they were the key. And Elliot Crane knew more than he was saying. Anne picked up her phone and made a call. Tech. Division, I need you to enhance some footage for me. And I need it fast. Anne was finishing her second coffee the next morning when her phone rang. Detective Morrison, this is Officer Ramirez. We got a call from a woman who says she has information about the Riverside Park case. Says she saw something that night. Anne sat up. Who is she? Evelyn Morse lives on Cartwright Street right next to the park. She's asking to speak with you. Anne grabbed her keys. I'm on my way. Evelyn Morse lived in a small brick house with lace curtains and a garden full of ceramic gnomes. She answered. The door wearing a cardigan and slippers, her silver hair pinned back neatly. Detective Morrison, she asked, squinting through thick glasses. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for calling. Evelyn ushered her inside. The house smelled like lavender and old books. They sat in a cramped living room cluttered with framed photos and knitted blankets. I should have come forward sooner, Evelyn said, wringing her hands. But I wasn't sure if what I saw mattered. Anything you saw matters, Mrs. Morse. Tell me what you remember. Evelyn nodded. I was letting my cat out around 8 o'clock. I heard voices. Loud ones, coming from the park. Could you see who it was? Not clearly, but I saw 2 boys. Teenagers, I think. They were arguing. Anne pulled out her phone and showed her photos of Nathan and Derek. Were these the boys? Evelyn leaned in, squinting. Maybe, I'm not sure. It was getting dark. And I don't see as well as I used to. Anne tried not to show her frustration. What else did you see? Well, after a minute or so, I saw them pushing each other. No, wait. One of them pushed the other, I think. You think? Evelyn frowned. I'm sorry, dear. My memory isn't what it was. Anne took a breath. Mrs. Morse, did you see anyone else? A third person? Evelyn's face brightened. Oh, yes. There was someone else. Anne leaned forward. Who? I don't know. But I saw a younger boy. Smaller. He was standing near the trees, watching. Anne's pulse quickened. Watching the 2. Older boys? Yes, he didn't move, just stood there like he was, I don't know, observing. Can you describe him? Evelyn shook her head. Not really. He was far away, but he was definitely younger. A child, maybe. Anne's mind raced. How long was he there? I'm not sure. I went back inside. After a few minutes. My cat doesn't like to be out long. Anne pulled out a photo of Elliot Crane. Could this be the boy you saw? Evelyn studied it carefully. Maybe. He looks about the right size, but I really can't say for sure. Anne put the photo away. Mrs. Morse, have you called the police? Before? About incidents in the neighborhood? Evelyn hesitated. A few times, why? Just trying to get a full picture. Evelyn's face flushed. I know what you're thinking. That I see things that aren't there. But I'm not senile, detective. I didn't say you were. People in this neighborhood think I am. They stopped taking me seriously years ago. Anne softened. I'm taking you seriously, Mrs. Morse. But I need to know. Are you certain about what you saw that night? Evelyn looked down at her hands. I saw two boys fighting, and I saw a younger boy watching. That's all I know. Anne stood. Thank you for your time. As she walked back to her car, Anne pulled up Evelyn Morse's record. 9 calls to police in the last 3 years. A suspected break-in that turned out to be a raccoon. A suspicious vehicle that belonged to a neighbor's son. A prowler that was a mailman. Evelyn. Morse wasn't a reliable witness. But there was one detail Anne couldn't ignore. She'd seen a younger boy watching. And that matched what Anne already suspected. Elliot Crane had been there earlier than he admitted. But why was he watching? And what was he waiting for? Anne sat in her car and called the tech division. Did you enhance that footage? Just send it to your email. Anne opened her laptop and pulled up the file. The hooded figure was still blurry, but the enhancement revealed something new. A logo on the sweatshirt, barely visible, white letters on black fabric. Anne zoomed in, LHS. Lyons, Lincoln High School. Anne's chest tightened. The person in the hoodie was a student. She immediately thought of Tyler Knox. But Tyler was smart enough not to leave evidence like that. He'd send someone else. Anne opened a new browser tab and searched the Lincoln High athletics page. Basketball, football, soccer. She scanned team photos. Then she saw it, a hoodie in the background of a football team photo. Same logo, same design. Worn by a player standing at the edge of the frame. His name was listed at the bottom. Jared Finch, Jr., defensive tackle. Anne ran his name through. The system. One prior incident, assault charge, dropped after the victim refused to press charges. Anne leaned back. Tyler Knox had a history of using people, and Jared Finch looked like the kind of kid who'd do anything to stay on Tyler's good side. Anne grabbed her phone and texted Marcus Field. Need to talk. Found something. Then she started the engine and headed back to Lincoln High. This case was about to crack wide open. Anne arrived at Lincoln High just as the lunch bell rang. Students poured into the hallways, loud and chaotic. Anne made her way to the main office and asked for Jared. Finch's class schedule. The secretary hesitated. Is he in trouble? I just need to talk to him. She handed over a printed schedule. Jared had gym 5th period. Anne headed to the athletic building and found him sitting on the bleachers, alone, scrolling through his phone. He was big, over 6. Feet, broad shoulders, the kind of size that made people move out of his way. Jared Finch? He looked up. Yeah? Anne showed her badge. Detective Morrison, I need to ask you some questions. Jared's expression didn't change. About what? Where were you the night of October 12th? He shrugged. Home. Can anyone confirm that? My mom, I guess. Do you know Derek Walsh? No. Nathan Hale? Heard of him. Don't know him. Anne pulled out her phone and showed him the enhanced image of the hooded figure. This look familiar? Jared barely glanced at it. Nope. That's a Lincoln High. Sweatshirt. So, half the school has one. Anne sat down on the bleacher below him. Jared, I'm going to be straight with you. I know you were at Riverside Park that night. I have footage. I have a witness. And I know you're connected to Tyler Knox. Jared's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Tyler's been using you, hasn't he? Tells you to do things, and you do them because you think it makes you part of his crew. I'm not part of anything. Then why were you at the park? Jared stood abruptly. I wasn't, and I'm done talking. Anne stood too. Sit down, Jared. You can't make me. Actually, I can, because if you walk away right now, I'm going to assume you're guilty, and I'll bring you in for questioning. Officially. Jared hesitated. Then he sat back down, arms crossed. Anne softened her tone. Look, I'm not trying to ruin your life, but someone got hurt. And if you were involved, even if you didn't mean for it to go that far, I need to know. Jared stared at the floor. I didn't hurt anybody. Then what did you do? He was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Tyler told me to scare someone. That's all. Anne felt her pulse spike. Scare? Who? Some kid, Derek. Why? Jared shrugged. Tyler didn't say. He just said Derek needed to learn to keep his mouth shut. And you agreed? Tyler said if I did it, he'd get me on varsity next year. Coach listens to him. Anne felt sick. So you went to the park? Jared nodded. I was supposed to rough Derek up a little. Not hurt him bad, just scare him. What happened? Nathan showed up. I didn't know he'd be there. Tyler didn't say anything about him. I panicked. I pushed Nathan out of the way and went after Derek. But then I heard someone yell and I ran. Who yelled? I don't know. Some kid. I didn't see him. Anne leaned forward. Jared, Derek told police Nathan attacked him. Why would he lie? Jared looked uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe Tyler made him. How? Tyler's got something on Derek. I don't know what. But Derek's scared of him. Anne sat back. What Tyler have on him? I told you, I don't know. Tyler doesn't tell me everything, he just tells me what to do. Anne left Jared on the bleachers and went straight to the principal's office. Principal Warren was a tired-looking man in his 50s who spent most of his time putting out fires. He did not look happy to see Anne. Detective, this is becoming disruptive. A student was assaulted, Mr. Warren. I think disruption is warranted. He sighed. What do you need? I need to talk to Tyler Knox. Now. Warren picked up his phone and called the front desk. Send Tyler Knox to my office. 5 minutes later, Tyler strolled in, hands in his pockets, smirk firmly in place. What's up, Mr. Warren? Sit down, Tyler. Tyler sat, eyes flicking to Anne. Oh, cop's back. Anne didn't waste time. You sent Jared Finch to assault Derek Walsh. Tyler laughed. That's insane. Jared already told me. You had him scared Derek to keep him quiet. Quiet about what, Tyler? Tyler leaned back in his chair. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anne leaned forward. Derek's terrified of you. Why? Maybe because I'm intimidating. He grinned. You're blackmailing him. Tyler's smirk faltered. Just for a second. Prove it, he said. Anne stood. I will, and when I do, you're going down for a lot more than bullying. She turned to Principal Warren. I want access to Tyler's locker and his phone records. Tyler shot to his feet. You can't do that. Watch me. That afternoon, Anne stood in the hallway as a school security officer opened Tyler's locker. Inside were textbooks, gym clothes, protein bars, and a burner phone. Anne pulled on gloves and powered it on. The text history was short, mostly messages to a single number, Derek Walsh's number. Anne scrolled through the messages. Tyler, do what I said or everyone sees it. Tyler, you know what happens if you talk. Tyler, Nathan's the perfect fall guy. Stick to the story. Anne's blood ran cold. Tyler hadn't just blackmailed Derek. He'd orchestrated the entire thing. She kept scrolling. Then she found something that made her stop. A video file. Anne opened it. The footage was shaky, poor lighting, but clear enough. It showed Derek in a school bathroom cornered by Tyler and 2 other boys. They were laughing, mocking him. One of them had a phone out recording. Derek was crying. The video cut off. Anne closed her eyes. This was what Tyler had over Derek. Humiliation, captured, weaponized. Anne pocketed the phone and walked out of the school. Tyler Knox was going down. But there was still one piece missing. Elliot Crane. How did he know about any of this? And why did he step forward when he did? Anne decided it was, time to talk to Derek again. But this time, she didn't go to his house. She didn't want his parents hovering. She needed Derek alone, in a place where he might feel safe enough to tell the truth. She arranged to meet him at a community center 2 blocks from his school. Neutral ground. No cops. No lawyers. Just a conversation. Derek arrived 20 minutes late, shoulders hunched, eyes darting around like he expected someone to jump out at him. Anne was waiting in a small room with 2 chairs and a table. No recording equipment, no windows facing the hall. "Thanks for coming," Anne said. Gently. Derek sat down but didn't look at her. Anne slid a bottle of water across the table. "You're not in trouble, Derek. I just need to understand what happened." He stared at the bottle. Anne leaned back, keeping her voice calm. "I know about Tyler Knox." Derek's hands clenched into fists. "I know he's been threatening you. I know about the video." Derek's breathing quickened. "Derek, I found the burner phone. I saw the texts. I saw the video he recorded of you in the bathroom." Derek's head snapped up, eyes wide, terrified. "You can't, he can't hurt you anymore," Anne said firmly. "I have the evidence. Tyler's going to be charged, but I need your help." Derek shook his head violently. "You don't understand. If I talk, he'll release it. He said he has copies. He said..." "Derek." Anne's voice cut through his panic. "Tyler's bluffing. We can get court orders to scrub that. Video from every device he has. We can protect you." "You can't protect me from everyone seeing it." Derek's voice cracked. "You can't protect me from people laughing at me every day for the rest of my life." Anne's chest tightened. She'd seen this before. Kids trapped by shame, by fear, by the belief that the worst thing in the world was being exposed. "Derek," she said softly, "what happened in that bathroom wasn't your fault." "It doesn't matter," he whispered. "People will still see it. They'll still know." Anne sat forward. "Then let's make sure Tyler pays for what he did. Let's make Sure he can't do this to anyone else?" Derek stared at the table, tears streaming down his face. "He told me to say Nathan did it," Derek said, voice barely audible. "He said if I didn't, he'd send the video to everyone. The whole school, my parents, everyone." "So you lied?" Derek nodded, sobbing. "Now, I didn't want to. Nathan never did anything to me. He was nice. He tried to help me once, but I was so scared. I just wanted it to stop." Anne reached across the table but didn't touch him, just stayed close. "Derek, you're not the bad guy here. You were a victim, and you still are. But you can stop being one right now. You can tell the truth." Derek looked up at her, eyes red and swollen. "What if it's not enough? What if he still ruins me?" "Then we'll deal with it," Anne said. "But at least you'll know you did the right thing. And Nathan won't go to prison for something he didn't do." Derek covered his face with his hands. Anne waited. Finally, Derek lowered his hands and wiped his eyes. "What do I have to do?" Anne spent the next hour recording Derek's full statement. He told her everything. Tyler had cornered him in the bathroom 3 weeks before the incident. Filmed him while his friends mocked and shoved him. Threatened to post it online unless Derek did exactly what Tyler said. The plan was simple. Meet Nathan at the park. Jared Finch would show up and rough Derek up. Then Derek would tell police Nathan did it. Why Nathan? Because Tyler's father hated Ruth Hale. Some old property dispute that had never been resolved. Tyler wanted to hurt Ruth by destroying her son, and Derek had been the tool to do it. "I didn't know Nathan would actually get arrested," Derek said, voice hollow. I don't know. I thought maybe they'd just question him and let him go." Anne kept her voice steady. "Did you know Elliot Crane was going to testify?" Derek looked confused. "Who?" "The boy who said he saw someone else attack you." Derek shook his head. "I don't know who that is." Anne made a note. Elliot wasn't part of Tyler's plan. So how did he know? What really happened? Anne left the community center and sat in her car, staring at her phone. She pulled up Elliot Crane's number. Then she hesitated. Elliot was 11 years old, a child, and Anne had pushed him hard already. But this case was almost over. She just needed one more piece. She dialed. Linda Crane answered. "Hello? Mrs. Crane, it's Detective Morrison. I need to speak with Elliot again." There was a long pause. "He's been having nightmares. He barely eats. I don't think—" "Mrs. Crane, I understand. But I'm close to closing this case, and I think Elliot has information. That could help. I promise I'll be gentle." Another pause. "Okay," Linda said quietly, "but I'm staying in the room with him." "That's fine." An hour later, Anne sat across from Elliot in his living room. He looked smaller than before, tired. His eyes were red-rimmed. Linda sat beside him, protective. Anne kept her tone soft. "Elliot, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. How did you know Derek was being forced to lie about Nathan?" Elliot stared at his hands. "Elliot," Anne pressed gently, "you knew something was wrong. You knew Nathan didn't do it. How?" Elliot's voice was barely a whisper. "I saw the video." Anne froze. "What video?" "The one Tyler recorded, of Derek." Linda's face went pale. "Elliot, what are you talking about?" Elliot looked up, tears in his eyes. "I saw it on Derek's phone, at school. I was walking past his locker and he had it open on his screen. He was crying. I only saw it for a second, but I knew something was wrong." Anne leaned forward. "When was this?" "A few days before the park." "And you didn't tell anyone?" Elliot shook his head, crying now. "I didn't know what to do. I thought if I said something, it would make it worse. So I followed Derek. I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to help." Anne's chest tightened. Elliot Crane wasn't a liar. He was a kid who tried to be a hero and ended up in the middle of something he couldn't control. Anne left the Crane house with more questions than answers. Elliot had seen the video. He'd followed Derek out of concern. He'd witnessed the attack. But something still didn't add up. Why wait until the trial to come forward? Why send the anonymous message about the video instead of just telling the truth from the start? Anne sat in her car and pulled up the email again. "Derek is lying. Ask about the video." Sent from the public library, traced to Elliot. But the timing bothered her. The email had been sent 3 days after Elliot testified in court. Why? Anne drove to the library and asked to see the security footage from that day. The librarian, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain, pulled up the system. "Here," she said, pointing to the screen. "That's the computer station that was used." Anne watched the footage. Elliot sat at the terminal, typing quickly, glancing over his shoulder every few seconds. He looked nervous, scared. He hit send. Then he closed the browser, stood up and left. Anne zoomed in on his face. He wasn't just scared. He was guilty. Anne brought Elliot and his parents back to the station the next morning. This time, there was no small talk, no easing into it. Anne placed a printed copy of the email on the table in front of them. "Elliot, you sent this." He stared at it. "Why did you send it after you testified? If you knew about the video, why not mention it in court?" Elliot didn't answer. Linda looked at her son, confused. "Elliot, what's going on?" Greg leaned forward. "Son, just tell her." Elliot's hands trembled. "I was scared." "Of what?" Anne asked. Of getting it wrong. Of making it worse." Anne shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. You testified that you saw someone else attack Derek. You were trying to help Nathan, so why hide the video?" Elliot's voice cracked. "Because I didn't just see the video, I took it." Silence. Linda's face went white. "What?" Elliot started crying. "I saw Derek looking at it in the hallway. I saw how scared he was. So I waited until he wasn't looking, and I took a picture of his screen. With my phone." Anne felt her stomach drop. "Why?" "Because I thought I could use it to help him. I thought if I had proof that Tyler was blackmailing him, I could show someone. But then everything happened so fast, and Derek got hurt, and Nathan got arrested, and I didn't know what to. Duni? Greg put his head in his hands. Linda stared at her son like she didn't recognize him. Anne kept her voice steady. Elliot, do you still have that picture? Elliot nodded, tears streaming down his face. It's on my phone. Can I see it? Elliot pulled out his phone with shaking hands, opened his photos and handed it to Anne. She looked at the screen. It was a photo of Derek's phone. The video was paused on a frame showing Derek in the bathroom, Tyler and his friends surrounding him, laughing. Anne's chest tightened. Elliot, she said quietly, why did you wait until after the trial to send the email? Because I realized I messed up, he whispered. I testified and I thought that would be enough, but then I heard people saying Nathan might still get convicted because there wasn't enough proof, so I sent the email. I thought if someone asked about the video, they'd find out the truth. Anne sat back. Elliot Crane hadn't been trying to manipulate the trial. He'd been trying to save Nathan, but he'd done it in the worst possible way. Anne left the station and called Claire Davison. We need to meet, now. They met at Claire's office. Anne laid out everything, Tyler's blackmail, Jared's confession, Derek's coerced testimony, Elliot's stolen photo. Claire listened, her expression growing darker with every detail. This is a mess, she said finally. It's worse than a mess. It's a conspiracy. Tyler Knox orchestrated the whole thing. Claire nodded. We can charge him coercion, blackmail, maybe even conspiracy to commit assault. What about Elliot? Claire hesitated. He's 11. He didn't act with malicious intent, but he withheld evidence. He manipulated the court process. He was trying to help. That doesn't make it legal, Anne. Anne felt a surge of anger. He's a child who saw something wrong and tried to fix it the only way he knew how. Claire softened. I'm not saying we throw the book at him, but there have to be consequences for everyone. Anne stood. Then make sure Tyler Knox gets the worst of it. That kid destroyed lives because his daddy had a grudge. Claire nodded. I will. That night, Anne sat in her apartment, staring at the case files spread across her table. She thought about Nathan Hale, who'd been framed for a crime he didn't commit. She thought about Derek Walsh, trapped by fear and shame. She thought about Elliot Crane, a boy who wanted to be a hero and became something else entirely. And she thought about Tyler Knox, who'd used people like chess pieces. Anne picked up her phone and texted Marcus Field. We're moving forward. Tyler Knox will be arrested tomorrow. Nathan's charges will be dropped. Marcus responded immediately. Thank God. Ruth's been a wreck. I'll let her know. Anne set down her phone. The case was almost over, but the damage had already been done, and Anne knew it would take a long time for anyone involved to feel whole again. Tyler Knox was arrested at school the next morning. Anne watched from the hallway as 2 officers walked him out in handcuffs. Students stared, whispered. Some pulled out phones to record. Tyler's smirk was gone. His face was pale, jaw clenched. His father arrived an hour later with a lawyer. Anne watched through the glass as they spoke in hushed, angry tones. She didn't care. The evidence was solid, the burner phone, the video, Derek's statement, Jared's confession. Tyler Knox was going down. Jared Finch was arrested the same day. He didn't fight it, just sat in the interrogation room, head in his hands, and signed his statement. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't think anyone would get hurt this bad. Anne looked at him. You were used, Jared, but you still made a choice. He nodded. I know. Derek gave his official statement to Claire Davison that afternoon. His parents sat beside him, devastated. We had no idea, his mother said, voice breaking. We thought he was just being moody. Derek stared at the table. I didn't want to tell you. I thought you'd be ashamed of me. His father put a hand on his shoulder. Never. You hear me? Never. Derek broke down. Claire closed her notebook. Thank you, Derek. You Did the right thing. Nathan's charges were formally dropped 2 days later. Anne attended the hearing. Nathan stood beside Marcus, looking dazed, like he couldn't believe it was over. Judge Moreau addressed him directly. Mr. Hale, on behalf of this court, I apologize. You should never have been put through this. Nathan nodded, unable to speak. Ruth Hale sobbed in the gallery, but Anne knew the hardest conversation was still ahead. She drove to the Crane house that evening. Elliot answered the door. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Can I come in? Anne asked. He nodded. Tyler Knox was arrested at school the next morning. Anne watched from the hallway as 2 officers walked him out in handcuffs. Students stared, whispered. Some pulled out phones to record. Tyler's smirk was gone. His face was pale, jaw clenched. His father arrived an hour later with a lawyer. Anne watched through the glass as they spoke in hushed, angry tones. She didn't care. The evidence was solid. The burner phone, the video, Derek's statement, Jared's confession. Tyler Knox was going down. Jared Finch was arrested the same day. He didn't fight it, just sat in the interrogation room, head in his hands, and signed his statement. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't think anyone would get hurt this bad. Anne looked at him. You were used, Jared, but you still made a choice. He nodded. I know. Derek gave his official statement to Claire Davison that afternoon. His parents sat beside him, devastated. We had no idea, his mother said, voice breaking. Derek stared at the table. I didn't want to tell you. I thought you'd be ashamed of me. His father put a hand on his shoulder. Never. You hear me? Never. Derek broke down. Nathan's charges were formally dropped 2 days later. Judge Moreau addressed him directly. Mr. Hale, on behalf of this court, I apologize. Nathan nodded, unable to speak. Ruth Hale sobbed in the gallery, but Anne knew the hardest conversation was still ahead. Anne sat across from Elliot in his living room. Linda and Greg flanked him on either side. Elliot. Anne said gently, I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Why were you really at the park that night? Elliot took a shaky breath. I followed Derek. Why? Because I knew something was wrong. I saw the video on his phone. I saw how scared he was. So when I saw him leave school that day, I followed him. Greg closed his eyes. Elliot. I thought I could help, Elliot continued, voice breaking. I thought if I figured out what was going on, I could fix it. Fix it how? Anne asked. I don't know. Tell someone, stop it. I didn't want Derek to get hurt. But he did. Get hurt. Elliot's face crumpled. I know, I saw Jared push Nathan. I saw him go after Derek, and I just stood there. I was too scared to move. Anne leaned forward. So why didn't you tell the truth right away? Elliot looked down. Because I thought if I did, everyone would know I was there. They'd ask why I followed Derek. They'd think I was weird. A creep. Linda put her arm around him. So I waited, Elliot whispered. And then Nathan got arrested and I realized I was the only one who knew the truth. So I testified, but I changed some things. Made it sound like I was just walking by. Anne sat back. You wanted to be the hero. Elliot nodded, tears streaming down his face. But I wasn't. I made everything worse. The story hit the local news 2 days later. Teen orchestrates false assault claim and revenge plot. The town exploded. Tyler Knox's name was everywhere. His father resigned. From the town council, the school board launched an investigation into bullying policies, but the Crane family became collateral damage. Neighbors stopped waving. Parents pulled their kids away when Elliot walked by. Angry messages flooded Linda's voicemail. Your son is a liar. He could have sent innocent boy to prison. What kind of parents raise a kid like that? Linda stopped going to work. Greg took a leave of absence from teaching. Elliot stopped going outside. Anne visited the family one last time before the case officially closed. Elliot sat on the couch staring at nothing. How are you holding up? Anne asked. He didn't answer. Linda spoke instead, voice hollow. He barely eats. He doesn't sleep. He just sits there. Anne sat down beside Elliot. Elliot, look at me. He didn't. You made a mistake, Anne said quietly. A big one. But you're not a bad person. You were trying to help. You just didn't know how. I ruined everything, Elliot whispered. No. Tyler Knox ruined everything. You were just a kid caught in the middle. That doesn't make it better. Anne sighed. No, it doesn't. But it's the truth. She stood. You can't change what happened, Elliot, but you can learn from it, and you can make sure you never play with people's lives again. Elliot finally looked up at her, eyes red and swollen. Anne nodded once. Then she left. 3 months passed. Nathan transferred to a private school across town. He rarely spoke about what happened. His mother said he was doing better, but Anne saw the weight in his eyes whenever their paths crossed. Derek started therapy twice a week. He'd gained a little weight back, smiled occasionally, but he still flinched when people looked at him too long. Tyler Knox was charged as a juvenile. Coercion, blackmail, conspiracy. He'd served time in a youth facility, then probation. His father's legal team fought hard, but the evidence was overwhelming. Jared Finch took a plea deal, community service, counseling, a permanent mark on his record. And Elliot Crane. He stayed home. Linda enrolled him in online school. He saw a therapist every week. Anne received a letter from him one afternoon. It was handwritten. Messy. Ink smudged in places, like he'd been crying while he wrote. Dear Detective Morrison, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know people are still mad. But I need you to know I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to help. I thought I could be like the detectives on TV, the ones who solve everything, but I'm not. I'm just a kid who messed up. I don't know if Nathan will ever forgive me, or Derek, or anyone. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Elliot. Anne folded the letter and put it in her desk drawer. She didn't respond. Some things didn't have answers. 6 months later, Anne was called to testify before a state panel reviewing juvenile justice reforms. The Riverside Park case had become a flashpoint, a symbol of how easily the system could fail. Anne sat at a long table, microphone in front of her, dozens of officials staring down from the gallery. Detective Morrison, the panel chair began, in your professional opinion, what went wrong in this case? Anne took a breath. Everything. She laid it out. The coerced testimony, the failure of school, administrators to act, the lack of resources for kids in crisis, the way a child's lie, however well-intentioned, had almost destroyed an innocent life. But here's the thing, Anne said, voice steady. Elliot Crane wasn't the only one who lied. The room went silent. Derek Walsh lied under coercion. Nathan Hale omitted details out of fear. Tyler Knox manipulated everyone, and even I. She paused. Even I doubted my own ability to find the truth at times. She looked directly at the panel. This case showed me that truth isn't simple. It's messy, fragile, and sometimes everyone's lying just in different ways. The panel took notes, nodded, thanked her. Anne left the building and found a reporter waiting outside. Detective Morrison, after everything, do you think we got to the truth? Anne stopped, looked at him. Nobody lied the whole time, she said quietly. But nobody told everything. Either. She walked away. Later that evening, Anne drove to the Crane house one last time. Elliot answered the door. He was 12 now, taller, still thin but steadier. Hi, he said softly. Hi. They stood there for a moment. Can I ever fix this? Elliot asked. Anne met his eyes. You can't. Erase it. But you can learn. And you can make sure you never play with the truth again. Elliot nodded. Anne turned to leave. Detective? She looked back. Thank you, Elliot said, for not giving up on me. Anne didn't answer. She just walked to her car. As she drove away, she thought about Nathan, Derek, Tyler, Elliot. All of them damaged, all of them changed. The truth had been told, but never entirely. And maybe that was the hardest lesson of all.